Hello there and welcome to my Arty Corner here on YouTube. My name's Angela Porter. I'm also known as Artwyrd. That's the business name I use around and about. And I'm an artist. It feels strange to say that every time I say it. It's sort of like, it feels almost boastful, but it isn't. It's a statement of fact. In fact, I think every human is an artist in one way or another. But that's a philosophical discussion for another time, maybe. So I love to draw. I love to draw quite abstract, quite doodly, very stylised, whimsical almost drawings. Some Zentangle influence, but not entirely. And I'm best known for adult colouring books, which always sounds so wrong. It's like they're naughty books, but you know what I mean. Colouring books for adults. And including Colour Me and a lot in the Creative Haven series from Dover and many others. What you can see in front of me, before I get to that, brain in the shed today completely. Might tell you about that in a moment, but anyway, I'd just like to say thank you so much to everybody who subscribed. It means so much to me because I don't feel like I'm talking to myself anymore. And to those who like my videos, thank you so much. It gives me a clue as to whether I'm getting things right or not, or interesting enough, which isn't. My point is to share my knowledge, my understanding, I suppose the way I work. I'm not saying it's the only way or the best way, but it just gives a different view on things that you can incorporate or not, try things out or not. It's entirely up to you. But as long as you enjoy what you see, that's all that really matters to me in many ways. And more importantly, that I can inspire and encourage you to keep going and don't give up. Because that's so important. I'll explain that in a moment. So thank you very much for that. If you are here and you haven't subscribed and you like what you see, please consider clicking that button. It doesn't cost you anything. You will never have to pay to click that button. All it does is let me know that what I'm doing you think is valuable. It lets YouTube know, oh, this is quite nice. Can you share it with other people who like the same kind of stuff, which is always useful, because the more people I can help, as far as I'm concerned, the better. So if we go to what's in front of me here, this is a page from my A4 sketchbook, and I'm faffing around with monograms and Zentangle patterns and my kind of entangled patterns and so on. And there's a disaster here, this one here. I thought it would be a nice idea to do background patterns in pale grey and then to add grey over the top. And then I decided to use purpley pens on the other. I'm not a fan of this one. Not a fan at all. This one though, where I haven't added any shading yet, and I will get round to it when I've decided how I'm going to do it, I added the background patterns with two different colours of the Arteza Incarnate fine liner pens. And one is sort of like a blue-grey. It looks a bit purpley on the screen, but it's not. It's a blue-grey. And the other one's a darker grey with a hint of blue in it. And I quite like this because I like the way that colour gives the shadow and everything. I know I want to increase the contrast, but how I do it is an interesting question, because these pens are water soluble, so I can't use any water soluble stuff. I could use alcohol markers, but as much as I love them, I don't think I may have some that are subtle enough in colour to work, or similar enough colour, but I don't want to fill the whole area like I have here. Possibly. I don't know. But I'm showing you this, not so much to show that, but I was awake in the middle of the night. I woke up extremely hot, sweaty, feeling really rotten and ill, and I don't know why. I got a sneaky suspicion I know why. It might have been stress, because I've had a weekend where yesterday evening I had to be with people in person, and there were a lot. You know, one of these things, I'm trying to ease myself back into things I used to do before the pandemic, but there's always a fallout with me. So what do I do when I'm awake and I can't sleep? I might have been feeling yucky, but I started to draw. I really love my letter A in the box. I'll show you letters stuffed in boxes another time. But I remembered that I'd been asked this morning, as I'm having my cup of tea, to have a look at a pattern or some work by Doodle Illusion on Insta. I'll put a link to the particular piece of work in the description box. And Chen Keith, who's a subscriber here, has asked if I could have a look at how this is done, and I suppose the Zentangle terms is to deconstruct it. I can't deconstruct somebody's artwork exactly the way they did it, but I can look at it and gain inspiration and work out how I do it. And you can see two attempts here, one on the bottom, which is sort of like it's a fair attempt, first one, and then up in this top corner it's more like the one that you've seen on Doodle Illusion, but I'm going to work with these and show you how I approach it. So I'm just going to pop this off to my side where I can see it, because it will be my reference for myself. And what I got here is I just have a piece of, this is Canson Imagine mixed media paper, and it's A6 in size, so it's about 15 centimetres by 10.5. Yeah, 10.5 centimetres. No, it's not 15.5 centimetres, 15 centimetres, 14.9 by 10.5 centimetres, which in inches, for those of you who work in inches, where's my ruler that has inches on it? It's about, I say about, it is 4 1/8 by 5 7/8. So a teeny bit over 4 inches and a teeny bit less than 6 inches. You know, it'll work, you know. It doesn't, it's, the size isn't critical, but I find people like to know so they can judge how big I'm drawing. Well, you can see that by my hands. If you give me a moment, I'm just going to move the camera in a little bit so you can see a bit clearer what I'm doing. Hopefully I'll get a decent angle on it so my hand doesn't get in the way. I'll just adjust the autofocus. A focus lock, hopefully. And we'll have a look. So I'm going to look at, I guess, both of them and how I've done them in some ways. Because what I thought would be a good, this is my mind working. I need something, if I come back here, I need something to hang these swirls on. And I've got a design here. I also had these lovely things that I started to, you know, use these as the lines, or where I could have the lines curling around here. So something like this would work as well. I've also switched to the paper because I'm hoping the Canson Imagine won't wreck pens like this does. It's lovely paper, the Sea White of Brighton All Media, but it's got quite a texture to it. And I'm also very heavy-handed with pens, so just had to dispose of one because the nib just wasn't doing what it was supposed to do. So when I realised this, I started putting some circles in that mirror these, and the same up here. But this one has got more of that folding over and twisting around kind of feel to it. So if I go, just put that over to the side. So I am going to, and I'm going to do that with a different pen. I've got my, it's a Tombow Fudenasuki, and it's the harder nib. Because I'm going to make my drawn border look very, almost sketchy, not perfect. Because I'm actually quite enjoying this kind of way of doing things. If I wanted it perfect, I'd get a ruler out, which I did use actually to draw the pencil border in. But I used a ruler that does that with lines, so I didn't measure it. I know it's not strictly Zentangle way, but I'm not really doing Zentangle either. Tea. I need tea. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with, I'm going to just put a circle here, and I'm going to put one of those little black pearls inside, because I just think it feels like it's almost like one of those pins you put in maps or on boards that way. It's like I'm sticking it here, and this is where I'm going to start. This is the one place. So I'm going to start by drawing around this and then coming off with a curved line. It is almost a kind of backwards S in shape. Now I'm going to start to just echo or aura this, except that I'm not completely, I'm actually getting these parts to join back to a line so that they're creating spaces within that I can make use of to add some ink to have this sense of folding over. It's so hard to describe what I'm doing. It's a lot easier if you watch, seriously. And so what I'm doing here is I'm just thickening some of these lines, but in a kind of, this kind of shape. So I'm taking this is a section of a line. I'm kind of creating it into a kind of leaf, an elongated leaf shape, I suppose, so that the thickness keeps the shape of the line mostly, but the line continues on at its original thickness. So it's making it thicker in the middle. So I'm going to add some more lines to this, and I am going to add some weight at the bottom. And here I'm going to start adding some lines that... So I'm drawing along this particular line that comes off from underneath this circle. And it's almost like these are coming out from behind it now. So it's like I've got a different layer going on. Oh, that was very Welshy, layer. Slipping into Wenglish or Valleys for a moment. So again, I'm just going to add a little bit of weight to the end of these lines. And I'm going to look at where I can actually perhaps sneak. Oh, I'll tell you what this is a bit like. It's like sneaking in some of those lumps and bumps you get in diva dance. So I'm beginning to get this twisting and weaving and spiralling kind of thing going on here. And you don't have to worry about making this perfect. There is no correct way of doing it. You do it to your own satisfaction. Okay. So I'm adding another line here because I really do want to get this. I want to feel that this section here is perhaps coming off here, but this one is a new part that's coming from elsewhere. And again, I'm going to just split this line. Splitting lines is also good, like this, because it helps to fill up spaces, but at the same time I can also add some weight, so a little lump or bump there, and I can do the same here. And that way, hopefully you can see that we're beginning to get things that look like they twist under. And I'm going to take advantage of that because I'm going to follow this line. Oops, as I draw on top of that one. White gel pens are my friends in these situations, and I'm going to have... So I've got this line coming along here, and I'm going to... I don't want these to go over on this side. I want these lines to come underneath, as it were. So I am going to start to create another kind of twist or fold in this ribbon, but I'm doing it in a slightly different way. So all I've done is aura this shape and continue it on until I get enough there that makes me feel, yeah, that's good to go. I'm going to thicken that end, and I am going to thicken this part. Thickening lines helps to make sense of how everything here is folding and tumbling the different sections, and it will make sense as we go along, hopefully, I'm sure. So here I am just adding some of these weights. I'm finding ways to split these spaces up that makes some kind of sense, I suppose, or adds that complexity. If you think about how water moves, that the ripples and flow in it, they sort of split and they come back together, like a complicated river delta, I think is the way I'm thinking. Is what this I'm trying to emulate in a way, or where you've got slow water flow through mud in swamps and things. You get all of these channels forming, and I think that's a good way of thinking about this. Okay, so now I want to create something that will come from under here. So I'm going to draw the section that I want, and I am just going to adjust the shape here so this end is a bit more pointy, and then I'm going to fill this in with these splitting and curving and flowing lines. Aura is your friend, but if you want a more organic look, don't vary how you aura things, vary the shape and how they connect, and it creates something that's a lot more organic and natural looking. So here I'm just going to add some weight to this line. Okay, now then I'm going to put another one of my beads. I think I'm just going to go back and tidy that up a moment. I'm just going to put a bead somewhere, doesn't matter where. So I do find these anchor points useful, kind of. I'm more thinking, how could you do this that would make sense to you? So, or that would make it easier. So I'm going to go here, but this is going to loop behind here like that. So I'm weaving this under here, and I'm going to connect it back to here at some point. But here I'm going to go this side of that line, just have it going under, and I'm going to do this here. You see I'm beginning to get these lines to join together here. And that is kind of what I want. It's kind of this kind of shape that we're trying to get. So if you imagine it as an S shape again, and we're just looking for these kinds of shapes going on. You could almost draw them like that, you know, back and forth, back and forth. But then the trick here is to go in and add darker sections to add that structure or that interest. And there's no right way or wrong way of doing that. You can even go that you go from one to the other and add that shape so it connects one area to another, or seems to be breaking them apart in some way. As I say, there's no right way or wrong way. It's whatever appeals to you. And I'm just giving you a way of working like this. This is how I would do it. But it's not the only way of doing it, and it may not be the best way. I've used pen to draw these points in. You could just draw pencil dots or pencil lines or pencil, you know, circles to work with, or shapes that you leave. And I'll do that in a little bit, because this is a demonstration piece. It's not going to be perfect or finished in any kind of way. So I'm just going here. So that weight here, it reminds me of, or the way I'm adding the darkness, reminds me of the Tangle pattern Gorgeous, or Pepper. perhaps, where there's a lot of contrast in the lines. So that is beginning to have this folding up and under. Here I'm going to have these joining like so, because it doesn't matter how you have these join. You can see on this side I'm creating more of an S shape and a bulge there. To begin with, it reminded me of sort of the connections you find in, oh, what's that tangle? Huggins? But it's not really a Huggins, is it now? It's kind of wavy, or so as I'm going along, I'm exploring ways of creating variation in pattern and so on. And here it's almost like I'm trying to put a wave within a wave, as it were. So I'll show you here. So I'm going up, down and up again, and it is kind of like a wave, but I am rounding those corners and adding some weight at the bottom. So I'm getting a different kind of texture in that. Actually, I quite like that. And then here, and the outside ones I'm going to start to add, which aren't going to make it all the way around here, because I think I reach a point where I just go, no, I just want to change the outer shape a bit. So we're going to have these going round here, and that's starting to add almost another twisting to that shape. So I do want to add some shadow. Now I'm doing this as I go along, but it may be that later on, you know, you could, if you prefer, you could put all of these kinds of overlapping kinds of weaving patterns in. All in, almost like in one go, and then come back and do the line weighting and so on. So here I've drawn that one line, then I've come here and I've drawn one that bulges out in this way, and then one here. So these are going to be my weaving, or my looping water, if you like. So this is another way to fill these spaces in a different way. So instead of drawing the lines individually, you draw the space that you want, and then you can go back and add these lines. And in some ways it gives you more options for how you connect them and where you put that, where you fill areas in with dark ink, lots of ink, or where you leave things to be lighter, and vary the distance between the lines as well, unless of course you like them particularly uniform. But if this is a sort of like organic flowing pattern, you're not likely to get a uniform flowing pattern in nature. It does exist, as it's called laminar flow, where everything is quite organised, but it's not something that happens easily, I guess. So I'm going to add some ink in here. And perhaps a little bit there, just to. But it's not just black and white you could use here. I quite like adding that little pattern. That worked nicely. So you could put other things in as well to create variations in ink density, darkness, lightness. So here I've popped some little orbs in pearls almost, and it adds another look, another feel to this. So again, I'm going to deal with this as if this is splitting or has twisted around. And in some places, like here, I'm going to add some weight to the line. If I go outside of my borderline, it's not a problem because my border's not perfect. So I can just add something there, will make it look like it belongs, as it were, which is fine. Okay. So back here and here. And again, I think I may do something like a wave within a wave like I did here, and just round those corners just to give that different kind of texture and pattern. That works quite nicely, I like that. And of course I could split these up as well in the same kind of ways if they're twisting round and round and round. Okay, so we're beginning to get some things going on here. This is looking interesting. Now, I did say about you don't necessarily need to use like the beads, so I could use my pencil to put an interesting shape somewhere and use this shape as the place I'm going to attach some of these twisting kind of shapes around. It doesn't have to be perfect echo of the shape, it's just that guide that I want to leave this shape here, and it will force me to be a bit inventive with the kinds of lines that I use in order to get these lines to twist around it. So there, that was a perfect shape that I made there, just to pop some of those in. And here I'm going to split this like so, and I'm going to add some black in here. Now, if you've seen my videos before, when it comes to diva dancey things where I've got a lot of black like this, once everything's dried and I'm finished, I often come back and add white dots in here just to add variation and some more pattern. Okay, so let's have a look at what we can do on this side. So here I'm going to go this way up. So I've got this unusual space here to play with. And I can start to split lines to get a different kind of pattern going on, even having some that join in unusual formats perhaps. So again, here I'm going to fill this one with black ink. This bottom one, I am going to start to bring some from under here so it looks like it's twisted under. You start these sort of like from further back, it can look more like it's twisted and turned. So that one there can have some black in it. This bottom one definitely can, like so. And then here I could put some black in there, but I'm going to use these little pearls again. So this is my kind of variation. As I've said, the inspiration has come from Doodle Illusion, but I'm putting my own little twists and spins on it, and I encourage you to do the same. You might prefer not to use black to fill these in, choosing to use, say, blues to add colour and interest. And use different shades of blue to colour the different sections in, and that's perfectly fine. That's your prerogative. You can do as you wish. So it is beginning to look quite interesting. Okay, so what I do want to do is this space here, I do want to have it looping around, and I'm trying to work out the best way to get this to happen so that I can get this space to... So I'm going to start weaving again. So I want this to go under and perhaps out here and over here. So that's quite a long way for something to go. So I'm going to have this go down here, swap over. So I'll show you how I've done that. So I started with a line like this, and then I decided I was going to start drawing one that would give me the twists and turns that I need. Like this, so it becomes more like a ribbon. And then you can spend time expanding these sections however you like to do that. And again here, you just have to stop and think which way would make the most sense to make it thicker so it looks like it's twisted up and over. And you don't need to count lines. You know, I can be got a bit of a thing about counting lines and making everything the same. For this one, it's not important whether you do or not, because you split them internally. You're going to make some thicker. And if you want that feeling of following a line through, you could make a line that makes sense to be joined together, that thicker part all the way through if you want. And then it adds that feeling of looping perhaps a little bit more, or the original waveform. You could draw very thick, and then these other areas that you add to. Keep them fairly light to begin with so that you can see what's going on here. But then that thick line right through the centre will show up, and even if you put some extra lines in the bottom that kind of overlap this here, that thicker line will always show through and will give that rhythm. But it's entirely up to you whether you do that or not. It's just another option. So I may very well start to thicken that line, but I'm doing it not equally. I'm doing it more like I'm keeping the shape. Where they cross over, I'm making it pointy so that it gives that feeling of them being pinched together, I suppose, as they cross over. So there I've managed to over spill a little bit, but everything's fixable. So I've got these going on, so I can now decide how I want to add this kind of wave going on. And part of me likes to add some on the other side of this darker line, because it just helps to almost embed it as part of the design in some way. I'm sorry if my voice goes quiet. It does that when I'm thinking and trying to explain what I'm doing. And I'm getting stuck in the flow of the art. So and it doesn't matter whether these match up on either side. They kind of will. So don't be afraid to follow them under. You don't need to be too fussy about whether they match up exactly, because this could go wider, it could go narrower, it could be the same. You just do what you feel is right for you in this moment and point in time. So I've got an unusual shape here, so I do want to add something that's lighter on the bottom, just to change this just that little bit. I'm beginning to add the darker lines in as I go now. This one I think would need a couple more to match this end here. This one's okay, but I'm going to add some that just kind of bulge out here on the side without affecting the points at the end, just to add that extra feeling of plumptuousness, as it were. I do like things that are plumptuous. We definitely can do that over here, I think. And again, I'm just going to add some contrast in here. And here I'm going to add a textured contrast, just to break up just the plain black and white. Oops, that was a bit mucky, but there we are. Now, I haven't completely filled this in because I think I'm going to be getting into the realms of awkwardness there, but it gave me that curve here to work around. And I do want to keep that curved shape in there, so I am going to do some rounding where these lines meet. Okay. Another way I think we can make some shapes is to create almost like teardrop shapes that we can then perhaps work with to create our wavinesses, or these flowy patterns. I think flowy is quite nice because they do look like they're flowing. And yet that one doesn't kind of meet up with this, but it's going somewhere. And there's enough going on the other side that it could just simply hide behind things. So we're getting some interest going on here. And these could just be trapped bubbles in the flow. And of course I do want to create another one over here perhaps. Let's do a nice big swoop. Oops, not a problem. We'll just thicken all of that up. I got a bit carried away in my exuberance there. So That one's looking a little bit on the odd side here, but that's not a problem because we just carry on here as if it's part of this particular wavy shape going on here. And this can be adjusted. I've got a lot of back and forth here where things are overlapping. So I've got these lovely sort of like crescent moon shapes in this particular one, and they're going to be lovely to do things with. I don't want to fill them all in with black. I do want to have the ends rounded, but this one definitely needs some of them. Because it's a bigger space than the others, I can actually fit the little orbs or the little beads or seeds in tucked behind one another, so it gives some dimension as well. So that's quite nice. And then this one, I think this one might end up being made darker. The trick here is not to overthink things and just trust. Trust your pen, trust yourself. This one I'm adding something a bit different. So I could have put orbs in. It's a very small space, narrow, so I thought, okay, let's do black and white boxes. I've made a bit of a mess there, so I'll just tidy that up. But it's all beginning to overlap and become quite intricate. Okay, let's have a look at what we can do with this one. So I'm going to exaggerate that lump here, or that bulge I should say, where it's this shape is beginning to bulge out. Just adding some weight into the places where these lines meet, helping to tidy them up as well. I'm going to do an aura in the kind of diva dance, you know, putting a long thin bump in there. I might do the same on this one, but in a slightly different position. And I think we might have some sections that begin to kind of split off and create these leaf shapes, or almost like the waves trapped within them. So here I'm just beginning to pop this one in, thickening this up so that we've got this going on here. It's very dark in this section, but I think I'm going to sort that out by filling this in with some pearls or bubbles that are trapped in here. And again, don't overthink. So I've got some here that are forming quite a nice shape along the edge now, and I'm just going to add some more at the top as if they carry on or there's a gap in them. So that's a way of splitting that shape up nicely. Touching that up. So we're beginning to get that kind of idea of what's going on here. Now then, where are they? Good question. Not in there. Are they over here somewhere? I am looking for some grey. Oh yeah, I've got that one. Where's the other one? There. So I've got a couple of Faber-Castell Pitt Artist pens, so I can start to add some shadowing into places here. I'm looking at where the lines will naturally kind of come together. So I'm just putting some shadows there. I'm going to add a little bit darker towards the point, like so. This is nice paper. It's much nicer than the sketchbook paper for these, I can already tell. And I'm just going to use that just to... And I'm adding shadow towards the edges as well, so... I definitely need shadows underneath where they overlap, like so. I'm going to bring the outer shadows down that little bit further, and I can use the lighter colour then to blend them out. They stay damp, these pens stay damper on this paper longer, which is great. And then here it's getting these shadows there. See how much ink I picked up there. I'm not happy, but there we are. I can always, once it dries, I can see if I need to lighten it in some way, and I can work out how to do that eventually. So we're getting that there. So, and I'm leaving areas of highlight as well. So here it's going to be darker here where they overlap. I'm going to put some darkness along the edge here as well, just to help with that. And I'm going to put some just along the edge there, because it'd be like it's disappearing underneath the outer border. Here I'm going to do the same, but we need quite a bit of shadow just there, in fact along all of it, because it's all twisting under. And here I'm just going to put a small amount along there. I don't want an extended amount of shadow above these. It's underneath where there's going to be a fair amount of shadow. So here I'm just using the lighter pen, hopefully just to blend that out a little bit. Not too well actually in this instance. Just clean that off because it is picking up that darker ink quite a bit. So I'm just going to fill, oh, that one's all filled in now, which is of use to nobody. But it's not unfixable, because I can go back and use a white gel pen or some white charcoal perhaps, just to spread it out a bit. Let's have a look here. This really has picked up some a lot of the colour as I've been using it, so I'll make use of what darker colour it's picked up. There you can see it's beginning to lighten up now. So here I've extended the shadow underneath here to give it that feeling that that is twisting underneath and this is coming over the top. So I don't want quite so much shadow. In the two places. And I will come back with the darker pen because I can just pop some darkness in where I want it to feel that little bit darker than it is at present. Just going to put some in, just put a little bit there, top and bottom of these orbs, just to make them look like they are bulging out. So I'll do that in a couple of other places. But hopefully you get the idea of what's going on here. And if I've got some darkness, or the edges are just that little bit too dark. I can go back and use the lighter pen now they've dried, just to add to the lighter edge. In. Shame about that one there. Oh well, it can be fixed. The other thing I can do, and I will do, is in these sections between them, I am going to fill it in. I'm using the medium grey, but I may come back and use a darker grey, or once this is dry, go over that with the same, with this slightly darker grey, just to darken it, and it will give. I'm just going around the edges just to add a bit more ink there, and a bit more darkness because they layer. So I hope you found this interesting, useful, and it makes sense, and that you'll give this a go. Obviously I've used materials that I particularly like to use here, and I'm aware that not everybody would have these available to them, but use whatever materials you have. If you prefer shading with a graphite pencil, do that. If you want to add colour and different intensities of colour to add shading, do that. It's entirely up to you. My surface here, I've chosen to use this rather than the cutting board, because the cutting board has a bit of a texture to it, which was annoying me yesterday. I couldn't get nice straight lines. So this doesn't have a texture, it's very smooth. And I'm so tempted to paint it with like the fresco paints, but I know I'll end up making a mess of it. So it'll get scribbles and all sorts on it as time goes on. Who knows, I may actually Zentangle it, you know, bit by bit. So I've got permanent pens, you know, I've got permanent markers there, big chunky stuff maybe. But anyway, it just remains for me to say thank you so much for joining me. I hope you'll give this a go. It will make a fantastic monotangle, but also these areas I've got open will be a wonderful place to put other tangle patterns in and so on. So have fun with it, play with it, don't give up if you find it difficult. Come back and watch what I do, go and see, you know, look at Doodle Illusions, Instagram and other people's. And there are Zentangle patterns that are similar to this as well, with the deconstructions. So just look for these things and see what happens. But it is a case, it looks overwhelming when you look at a drawing as a whole, when it's very complex. But every complex drawing starts in one place, and then things build up from place to place. Even if you're sketching it out, you start with one thing, and the going behind is the trick to getting things like this to work. And I find I prefer to work directly in pen and not make pencil sketches. I find that's just a faff, but that's me. But if you want to put waves in pencil form and then come back and add ink and have the waves going underneath, draw them in pencil, then erase them afterwards, so you get the shapes you want going underneath, you just carry on. Whatever you feel you need to do. So take care, and I'll see you again soon. Oh, and don't forget, be creative. Find time to be creative, and don't give up when you think something's not working. Take care for now. Bye-bye. Bye.